Okay, thank you, everybody. So I think before we start this interesting panel, let's go down the line with our three distinguished guests and get them to do a brief introduction about themselves.
Hi, my name is Gun. I'm a founder and CEO of Mercular, a quality gadget platform that in Thailand market. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Maxim. I'm founder of Gtriip. We do digital check-in and digital entry for hotels and casinos. So this very place, Venetian, is also one of our customers. So from the ferry, you could go straight to your room by digitally checking in.
Right. Hi, my name is YP Yao Peng. I'm from Singapore. I represent Hague and Hoow Foods. So basically, we are a food technology company. We specialize in reformulating, developing foods into healthier and sustainable versions. So if you guys have attended the welcome dinner 2 days ago, the eggless egg product that was presented on the menu was from us. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. So, for this panel, we're talking about, Southeast Asia and the emerging generation, right? So that's the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha. Just to set some context, for this panel discussion, I run a firm called Tint, or communications and digital data firm. And, we came up with a couple of interesting facts for one of our clients, a large e-commerce company in Southeast Asia. And what we found out was for Gen Z, the digital natives, within 2 years, Gen Z will actually make up 1/3 of Southeast Asia's population, right? So it's a very important growing population that businesses need to focus on. For Gen Alpha, this is the more sort of puzzling sort of question for businesses, right? So this is the group which is born into the world of smartphones and gadgets and social media. And interesting sort of research found that for Gen Alpha, they started interacting with smart devices at an average age of 6 years old, and they could operate a tablet when they're 4 years old, right? So it's a bit of a conundrum for businesses as we try to figure out that puzzle of how do we cater to and engage with these future or current sort of customers. So let's segue into the first question, which is for all the guests here. It's not just about getting to know this next generation, but how do you actually get to know them and how do you engage with them and interact them with as future sort of customers?
Yeah. So I think the key thing about to interact with the customer and engage with customer in Southeast Asia, since in this region, right, it's very fractured. We have almost 10 countries, and all the population is so different, right? But one thing that shares in common that most of the customer is emerging into the area that looking for more convenience, looking for more sustainability. So all of these customers share the behavior that care about this. That's just, I think, in the region that's moving toward on here.
I think businesses really need to think digital first. So my son probably belongs to Gen Alpha. He was born in 2017. So at the age of 4, he's already indeed using a tablet, and his preferred mode of communication is using a phone, trying to send a WhatsApp. So if you're a business that used to think that doing things online, digital, let's say an online check-in, is a secondary thing, you're going to be so wrong when you try to target these younger people. They're going to look up your website. They're going to try to see whether you have an online check-in. What's your digital capabilities like? Do you do digital concierge? Does it support multiple languages? Is the AI smart enough? So I think a lot of businesses got to start thinking that digital is their primary mode of communication and touch points for these Gen Z customers.
Well, I just want to poll the audience. How many Gen Zs are actually in the audience right now? I don't see. Oh, okay, 1, 2. All right. So I believe the panel here, we are mostly millennials, right? Can I say that? I assume, right? And I think there's always a perennial question about how do we engage Gen Z and Gen Alphas, right? I think the key thing for me is about communication and constantly improving yourselves. So it's about that dialogue between the previous generation and the upcoming generation. I think the future lies in the Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, right? We are going to be dinosaurs one day, right? But how do we improve ourselves? So for example, I stand for the food tech community, right? I speak for the food manufacturing, F&B. So we do food tech, and one of the things that we realized on our younger generation customers is that they are very woke, and basically they're very passionate about environment, about sustainability, right? And that's where our product, basically, we have an eggless egg, plant-based company, right, that really caters to this mindset of sustainability, about how can we save the environment, how can we be kinder to animals and our environment. So I think these are things that as boomers and millennials, we don't really we don't really get that exposure before, and this is how we can cater to the next generation by hearing them out and what are they waking up to every day and thinking about these problems that we don't, right? And this is all about communication and listening to them, and that's how we improve our products and push out products that are relevant to this group of consumers. And that's my take.
Great, thank you. So I've got a few questions which are specifically for each of you. Maybe Gunn first. As a founder and CEO of a company which provides B2C products for in the realms of consumer technology, how are you what challenges have you faced when trying to engage with this particular group?
I think the most challenging part is that I think in Southeast Asia, especially in Thailand, right, the consumer change behavior is very fast. And to capture this, like, okay, I'm from a Gen Y. Of course, I'm kind of like on a late Gen Y, almost Gen Z already. I think as you mentioned, is about communication, right? So I think most of the customer, right, they have different kind of interests. Like for me, like we sell like all the gadget stuff, right? So that means we capture the passion, passion of our customer. And in order to interact with them or capture with them, you have to understand their behavior. You have to understand their behavior first, where do they do, what do they do, and that is kind of very fragmented and very segmented. So that means in each communication that you go, right, to capture your customer, you have to kind of like dissect their behavior and then go to each by personalized by channel in order to capture the customer. I think that's a key part to communicate and connect with them.
Thank you. And this back to Yao Peng. So I think you alluded to this before. So I think with the emerging generation, they're sort of a lot more clued up, a lot more demanding than we were. So, as you build your startup and your business, as you sort of build things which are really sort of catering for this population, what are the things that you have in mind to really sort of make sure that they're in line with your business and happy?
Right. I think that's a very relevant question. Thank you, AJ. So I think while in the midst of building the business, we have to be really true to our core, right? And what for me at least, it's about bring value to the world and basically bring products that can make the world a healthier and sustainable place. So I think that one of the challenges really is to educate the newer generation. And I think what Worangun mentioned just now, challenges as such, right? How do you make sure that your core resonates with the younger generation and this core of customers that will eventually buy your product and be your customer? And I think it's always a constant dynamic challenge, and how do you regroup again all the time and improve as a product, as a company. It's not just your customers, but your team members as well. Because interestingly, I run a team that is about 70% Gen Z. So it's always a constant struggle. It's always a constant learning process for myself as a founder. And I learn so much every day from my staff, my team, and my customers. And from there, we iterate and we get better. So this is how I'll do things.
And for Maxim, on the other end of the spectrum, so you run a business which is a leading provider of identity software. Within the realms of identity capturing and management, how important is this technology when dealing with this growing population of citizens who have very unique demands in regards to engaging with businesses? And also, how do you handle there's certain behaviors which can lead to increased risks, right? So it's balancing both of them as you deal with them.
So one of the interesting thing that we found out is we as a business to business B2B software provider, we are serving businesses that sometimes got to attract younger users. So for example, we serve a very large university in Singapore, and the customers are of course younger customers, they are university age. So although we know how these university students are going to behave, but they are not my paying customer. My paying customer is the university. So sometimes we even have to go to the extent of we go to forums like Reddit. We go to Reddit and figure out what these students are saying about the product that the university is asking them to use. And this is a product we sold to the university. And sometimes being in digital identity, we have to look at how these users are concerned about their data privacy, the privacy of their identity. So if they're doing a photo ID verification, how do we take care of this data? Like what you said earlier, is they're very woke. So they want to know what you're doing with their data. And you'll be surprised, because they're digital natives, they understand what you could do with this data, and they're very concerned about it. So you need to, as an organization and a product, we got to be very transparent with how we deal with this data, how we take care of the privacy, how we are not going to sell this data to other marketing companies, and things like that. And sometimes it goes beyond just knowing what to do. Sometimes we have to educate our corporate customers to do the same as well, so that they are transparent about this whole thing to their own users.
Great, thank you. And this is a question for all of the panelists. So, just not looking about the industries yourselves, but how are traditional industries that you see being disrupted by technology and the needs and wants of the emerging generation within Southeast Asia?
I think there's a lot of technology that from the startup, from the technology side, disrupt the traditional business. For example, in my case, right, I'm in the e-commerce or retail industry. And the way that the first thing that they change the behavior drastically is about the pricing, of course. We have Shopee, we have Lazada. Everyone just go shop online, right? And everyone just go on a discount. And that's what the venture or the investor believe, right? But after being 5 to 6 years, right, the behavior starting to change. Now, Double Days is not. It's not just people just start to recognize that Double Day is not the heavy pricing day anymore, because we do every month. In China, in Hong Kong, maybe they do 11/11, right? Maybe one time a year. But in Southeast Asia, we do every month 1/1, 2/2, 3/3, and that's how the startup, right, or the giant tech firm, right, change behavior from offline behavior go to online behavior. And now that online behavior is shifting again to offline again, because nowadays it's not just only the pricing alone, but people seeking for the differentiation. They're seeking for other value. For example, you see that there's other company like in retail space that looking for community, because they want to capture the alpha gen, they want to capture the Gen Z, and that's the more value that they bring up to the table. And that's how the technology has changed and disrupt a lot, quite drastically so far. So apart from that, I think the behavior now it's changed from the offline to online, and now the offline starting to copy the online again. So the traditional changed quite a lot, and that's how the behavior have changed so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to concur to Worangun's statement as well. I think for our company, we run an online business, food business portal as well. We have a joint venture with the oldest coffee shop brand in Singapore, Killiney Coffee Shop in Singapore. So we help them with the R&D. We have a factory that sells physical coffee, instant coffee, and beverages and condiments. So during COVID-19, the pandemic, we saw a shift, almost 100% shift in our sales to online, right? But now I think omni-channel is definitely something that is ever present, right? And we see sales going offline, right? We are targeting supermarkets, we're targeting mom and pop shops, even social marketing right now, right? Direct sales. I think it's really taking stage. So as a product owner and also doing a lot of R&D for different companies, I totally concur that right now, the whole identity of online, offline is really shifting. And we can't really predict when it's going to happen right next. But right now, it's definitely going towards omni-channel, and people are getting out of their house, getting out of their homes, and getting to the supermarkets to buy our products. So I think we got to be very dynamic in this sense, and there's no one-size-fit-all kind of technology or anything at least for the food industry. But just to cap it off, how technology actually shaped the industry in Southeast Asia, I think for the food industry, I think AI is also taking a lot of center stage in our industry. You have the delivery tech, which your Grab, the Deliveroo, Panda, Food Panda, and cloud kitchens coming up. So I think it's really disrupting how we wine and dine in F&B outlets. No longer do you want to go to a restaurant. I mean, if you want to go to a restaurant, it's about the experiential uptake, right? But now, if you're lazy, you just want to sit on your couch, enjoy the food, and get it delivered to you. And there's so many exciting technologies coming up in that space that's changing the way that Southeast Asians consume their food, at least for my sector.
Ben raised a very good point about this experience. What I noticed is that I'm in travel tech and travel and hospitality. So what I noticed is that this is a generation, this is an Instagram generation, an Instagram and TikTok generation. So whatever they do have to look very Instagrammable. So you can be very assured that in travel sector, the old school travel tour packages are going to become dinosaurs. These kids are not joining those tour packages. They want to pack their own bags. They want to understand the local culture, and they want to experience it themselves. So there was a shift in trend where a lot of my hotel customers were losing their guests to Airbnb, because guests, they just want to join the locals and stay in Airbnb. And at one point, Airbnb was again losing guests because these millennials were traveling. They're going for branded hotels, but not the traditional 5-star brands, but newer brands that are coming up, sometimes the boutique brands. They're very targeted towards the younger travelers. So for businesses, they got to have a finger on the pulse of these changing trends and pivot quickly. So sometimes we see that very large international brands of hotels, they start to launch new products. In this case, they're building new hotels with new brands that are younger and very targeted towards the younger travelers.
Yeah, interesting. There was a recent article after talking to Southeast Asian, VCs, and they had a bit of a bugbear when sort of dealing with certain e-commerce businesses, particularly in Southeast Asia, who were suffering somewhat from trying to chase the certain population about their sort of ever-changing and very sort of high demand needs. And there were two sort of trains of thought. One was to try and be more agile as they try and cater and deal with these customers. And the other one was trying to pull back a little bit and go back to traditional ways of business and educate this generation. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think the era that we all mentioned, right, is the era has been shifting. Okay, let's say 5 years ago, it's about changing behavior to online. Now it's not an online to off. Now it's not an online alone, but the experience has been more together. And what you talk about the VC trying to chase or capture the customer, I think that era have shifted to the certain point that we are about experience in a different era again, because now I think a lot of big player, right, has come in to Southeast Asia already, and the startup had to find a new segment like a vertical to be more niche, to be compete in a differentiation, and it's not about the basic need like competing on price or on so on that. So in that case, right, I think that's why the venture that looking for that new era, this era again, right, is kind of like we have to find that the company that can be able to catering experience that can mold this differentiation apart from the basic like pricing or buying the market and just scaling, to be a giant tech, right? But be more vertical, be a company that can sustain and be profitable. Because we all know that right now we are in the winter of an investing period, right? And that's how the venture or the startup had to adapt to this climate change, I think.
Well, for me, I think there's a lot of emphasis right now into impact investing. And I think VCs nowadays, They really look into ESG. They look into what's your carbon footprint, what's your impact to environment, how do you value add to mankind. I think these are things that are more taking center stage right now in the VC world, at least for my sector. I think it's not only to, about cost, like what Worangun mentioned, how do you fight price wars, how do you fight in terms of your merchandise, your GMV and everything. I think right now it's more about how can you attract the next generation in terms of impact when you sell your products at the same time. And I think that takes a lot of emphasis in our pitches right now. That's how I feel.
I find that having taken some VC money, we raised our Series B in 2020. There's a huge shift in terms of mentality. We used to be always in this mode of grow fast and burn money to acquire users and customers and subsidize a lot of these acquisitions. Customer acquisition costs were huge. Now, a lot of the investors and also even the startup themselves seems to be in this mode of efficiency. How do you get to profitability quicker? How can you be more efficient? And how can you build a more sustainable business that can eventually see a liquidity event? So there's a lot of mindset change. Of course, interest rates are rising, so there's no cheap capital. It's getting harder to raise. Of course, a lot of people are still closing, but you'll notice that these are the businesses that has a clear path to profitability and, of course, the ability to later go IPO with a good share price and even retain the share price a year after the lockup periods. So this huge shift in mentality also changes the way the businesses operate. So businesses are now a lot more prudent on the spendings. They won't be subsidizing much anymore, but they will focus on building products that appeal to the correct generation of users and truly deliver value with the way to get profits later on.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky balance to sort of try and do the best you can with your business, but being efficient at the same time, especially when looking at this type of population catering for. I've just got a few minutes left, so we're going to wrap it up with this final question, which is for all of you. What are the opportunities from your perspective in Southeast Asia for investors and businesses when dealing with this emerging generation?
I think the option, people always think about there's a new option coming in, right? But for me, from my perspective, right, I think it's like obviously it's lie in the same industry. That of course they're talking about ESG, but I think that the same old industry, like the retail, like traveling, I think this industry is the one that still driving the growth. For example, e-commerce still driving one of the highest growth. This year, of course, it's travel, obviously, because the COVID situation, right? But the key thing about this, the way that you do the business, the opportunity lies in the way that you change the way that you try to do business. Because we're talking about to be more prudent, we're talking about to be more efficient, and we want to be clear that how to create a real value. And that's if you can find a way that capture a real value, that with a sustained business and can make a real business without burning and make it profit. I think that's the key thing in Southeast Asia now. That's for me.
Right, I concur as well. Again, I think right now the COVID-19 pandemic has really shaped the investing world and how people, especially in Southeast Asia, do business. Right, I think it's about what value you bring to the table, and I think right now how do you do the business, the process of doing it. I think Worangun has rightly mentioned that you have to do it ethically, you have to do it sustainably, you have to do it in a way that it is profitable for the business efficiently, right? Whatever the business is, I think as long as we feel a gap, a need, I think that will be an opportunity by itself. Just for my sector, we saw the need for environment sustainability, healthier food. So that's how we basically go towards. We R&D towards that. That's our mandate. We build value for the F&B players in the industry, and that's the opportunities that we see as a company in our sector.
I think there's a huge opportunity for businesses to drive sustainability and deliver that messaging in a clear way to attract the customers. For example, my son, who is just 5 years old, came back from his preschool one day and told me that, look, Papa, can you buy us an electric car? I was quite surprised. Why do you want an electric car? What's wrong with the normal car? So he said, oh, it's going to help us save the earth, and it's quite important for me. I was quite taken aback because it didn't occur to me, but he's kind of right. Is their earth going to be their earth in a few years, few decades? So we have this generation who has a very different set of values from us parents. They are very environmentally aware. So if you have products and services that take care of environment and is able to deliver the messaging. So even us, when we sell our products today, we have a very different position and say, you know what, by doing digital check-in, we're going to cut down on plastic cards. You're going to cut down printing of these registration cards, and it will save you a certain carbon footprint. And this kind of messaging seems to go very well with the buyers who are environmentally aware, who are aware of their own carbon footprint, and who are always looking out to support businesses that take care of the environment.
Yeah, you're definitely right. So it's not just about looking at this sort of generation as being very demanding, but they've also, you can't underestimate them, the knowledge that they have, everything's at their fingertips, and probably even better than us in terms of like getting access to it and sort of contextualizing it. So I think we're just running out of time. So I'd like to thank all the panelists, Maxim, Yaopeng and Gun for being here and sharing your experiences and thoughts. Congratulations on running 3 very successful businesses. And I think you're going to be here for the rest of the session, so if anybody wants to grab a hold of them, I think they're still here. So on that note, I'd like a round of applause. Thank you.